Okay, so this is a dramatic vision that you're sketching. You grew up in the Soviet Union, you're traveling now in the United States. The Soviet Union was a controlled society. Is this truly a controlled society? Because we consider ourselves free. One of our great phrases is, give me liberty or give me death.
Yes, I think that, of course, the communist society was a society of total control. But in those times, there were not yet these means, technical means of control, as today. After now of almost more than 30 years to collapse, there were not yet in those times these technological means of control. Now we have them, and therefore it is evident, as we already stated, in our daily life, in our travels and so on, the technology and our emails and our cell phones and so on are already controlled. We know this, and now with the global vaccination, it's a further step. I don't enter in the technological details of the vaccination, but only the fact of this, that is promoted with such a intransigency.
Yeah.
This is already a sign of preoccupation and concern. And so we have to again to restate and to create a world chain and movement of people, of all people of goodwill, to regain the basic civil freedom, to be not treated as little children who do not know what they do, or as slaves by a small, powerful group of an elite, which is dictating to all governments, to all nations, until the detail how to behave. For example, in this COVID crisis, it was manifest that it is a very detailed, elaborated plan from a kind of elite group, central, who is giving the orders to do all the same orders and the same details, the same terminology to all countries of the world.
So you're saying your evidence for the fact that for what you believe is a global coordinated effort is the very fact that the same phrases were used in different countries, the same programs were unfolded, unrolled.
Yes. It is not my belief. It is I state. You can state the facts, and so we are not stupid. I mean, we have to simply open our eyes and our mind, and we state this, that even unto the details, the signs, the symbols, the terminology, the plans, all are coordinated. They cannot simply fall from heaven.
Well, you are a Catholic priest and bishop, and you are presenting yourself. You mentioned there needs to be a global community that coordinates a type of resistance to this. Are you truly saying that?
Yes, of course we do need, for the sake of again re-establish a true, worthy human life, to restore the dignity of the human life, to respect the freedom, the true freedom, and to eliminate all signs of tyranny, of dictatorship.
Tyranny and dictatorship.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think that you have any allies in this?
I think that history showed that there were always people in difficult times who started a resistance. We know the resistance movements in the Nazi Germany. We know the resistance movements in the communist countries. And those who fought in the resistance movements later, when the dictatorial systems collapsed, they were honored as heroes, really. But they were persecuted, of course, in the time of their resistance. And so I think we have to to unite really for all countries, people of goodwill, with really with all levels of the society, who simply use their common sense.
But I have to say, I must interject, we have at the head of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis. He's asked people to more or less accept and agree with and go along with this coordinated effort to create some type of global response to the virus with this vaccination, and then to accept the restrictions, the masks, etc. How can you explain that this successor of Peter could be so different in his analysis of this situation than you are, who are also a bishop in the same church?
I think this is not the task of a pope to help such a global, evident movement, which is evidently in an excessive form, restricting the fundamental liberties of human society, of the individuals, to be the promoter of such simply inner-worldly realities. This is not a task of the Church, this was not a task of St. Peter, which Christ gave him and to his successors. Peter said, when the temptation came, that the first pope and the first bishops, the apostles, wanted to deal more with the earthly realities, to serve the tables. We read this in the Acts of the Apostles.
Yes.
Peter, the apostle, said, it is not fitting, it's not good that we abandon our first task, which is the prayer, so the glorification of God, the liturgy, and the proclamation of the gospel, of the truth, of the word. And these the Church must, and every pope must follow. Unfortunately, during 2000 years, there were cases when some popes did not follow this and were immersed in simply worldly realities, forgetting their first task of praying, promoting the prayer and the preaching of the truth of the gospel and salvation of souls, not of bodies, the first time. And so we had, for example, in the Renaissance times, popes who completely were immersed simply in worldly things.
Alexander Borgia.
Yes, for example, or even Julius II. He was almost spending his time as a pope on the horse, fighting as a soldier, as a pope, as a commander of an army, and so on. Or another, Leo X, spent all his time in diverting himself with music and with other worldly things. In any case, this is for me also a sign that the current Pope must really deeply reflect if he is really observing his first mandate which Christ gave to Peter and then to him, and to really to take at serious the words of St. Peter which we mentioned in the Acts of the Apostles.
Hello, I'm Deborah Tomlinson with Urbit Orbi Communications. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel by clicking the red subscribe button, and make sure you click that bell and you'll be notified of any new uploads. Also, check out all the links below. There's some discounts for you. Thank you.